10 million people every single year navigate this dense, brightly lit maze right in the center of Seattle. When you watch the famous flying fish or stand in line at the heavily photographed Starbucks, it's easy to assume this space was meticulously designed by city planners to draw crowds. But nearly a century ago, this exact same spot was just a muddy plank road sitting over the Elliott Bay tide flats. Seattle's most famous attraction exists by chance. It emerged from a specific local economic crisis rather than an architectural master plan. This chart of the 1907 produce market shows why farmers were angry. They took home a tiny sliver of profit, while middlemen, known as commission houses, extracted massive markups before selling those same crops to city shoppers. City Council President Thomas Revelle suggested a solution: use an old 1896 ordinance to declare a stretch of road a public market where farmers could sell directly to the public. On August 17, 1907, the first wagons rolled up to the curb. Every farmer sold out of their entire stock in a few hours. The success was immediate. By the early 1920s, the wagons were replaced by a permanent structure, housing a dense network of delis, butchers, and bakeries. This era was a working-class success, but it set the market on a collision course with city planners, who wanted a cleaner, more modern downtown. By 1922, the market reached the physical footprint we recognize today, surviving an early 1921 attempt by the city to clear the streets of farmer stalls. A driving force behind this growth was Seattle's Japanese-American immigrant community. By some counts, they made up a majority of the farmers selling produce here in the 1930s. In 1942, those farmers were sent to internment camps, and many never returned. The market's demographic makeup shifted permanently. The red neon sign went up in 1937, but by the end of the war, the specific community that had built the market's agricultural trade was gone. By the 1950s, the buildings were aging and weathered. To city officials eyeing post-war growth, the market looked like a slum in need of clearing. In 1963, city planners proposed Pike Plaza. They wanted to bulldoze the entire district and replace the chaotic market with a highly engineered vision of the future. Instead of independent stalls, the city planned to build these uniform concrete towers. The layout shows the true priority of the era: massive concrete parking structures and infrastructure designed for cars rather than pedestrians. Architect Victor Steinbruck and the Friends of the Market fought back. They argued that the city's soul lived in these old, messy buildings. They gathered 25,000 signatures in 3 weeks to force a public vote. On November 2, 1971, voters chose to establish a 7-acre historic district. This vote was a rejection of top-down engineering in favor of protecting a functioning public space. Following the vote, restoration crews used original 1907 blueprints to ensure the market buildings looked exactly as they did on day one. Inside those walls, new layers of history kept forming. The famous Starbucks storefront that draws daily lines is actually a 1976 relocation, not the 1971 original. In the early 1980s, at a seafood stall much like this one, a bored employee decided to throw a customer's order to a coworker instead of walking it to the scale. The crowd loved it, and a spontaneous prank eventually became a choreographed routine. Today, it is the most recognizable symbol of the market. The 1971 vote ensured the market remained a public commons rather than a private development, which kept the stalls affordable and chaotic enough for these new traditions to take root. Today, when tourists watch a salmon fly over the crowd, they're standing on the ground where farmers once fought just to park their wagons. None of the things that make Pike Place famous were part of a master plan. The most authentic parts of a city are formed through the friction of everyday people solving problems and building community. Pike Place survives because twice in a century, voters decided this specific, accidental landmark was worth saving from demolition.